possibility that when they went back to the other council members, that the other council members would not agree on it, would not agree on the deal. That was the leverage that we had. So there are some, so I'd like to commend the council members that did get involved, and there's some pieces of this lease that I do like. One of them is that the termination option, we have an option to terminate within 30 days. I think that was a smart thing for us to put in. It means that in the future, if there is another option comes up, that we can explore that option, and then we wouldn't pay any of that $6 million that would be due after the date that we terminate it. So if another option comes up in the future, we have an option to exercise it. You know, the $6 million, to me, it's not a real big deal, because we would likely have spent that same $6 million anyway. But I think what the council members did on the negotiation team is they got a match dollar for dollar. So it's either going to come from, well, it'll come in federal funds very likely, but we get to match that dollar for dollar, where in other circumstances we wouldn't have had to. So I think there's some good things about this, and I do truly believe that based on where you guys started from, that you truly got the best deal that you could possibly get. I'm just really dissatisfied with where we started, and I think it could have been done very differently. So we find ourselves in a position now where, you know, it is really difficult. As Kathy said, as Barbara said, you know, we're left with the option. Do you want to get punched in the nose or the stomach? You know, you're going to get punched either way. Where would you like it? And that's not a decision that really anybody wants to be in a position of making. I certainly don't want to make that. I understand, respect, and appreciate those council members voting to approve this lease, but I cannot support it.
Okay. I have a little different perspective, and you know, having gotten involved in this when we first sat down January of 2010, had our first meetings, I can't think of how many times I turned to Pete and to Dan and said, well, it looks like we're going to Fairhaven. I mean, I've said that many times through the last 2 years. Councilmember Larson, you're correct. It was hardball, and but there's some good aspects about it. Part of feeling a little differently is I think we've got a good agreement in front of us. We got kind of hung up on our $65,000 appraisal of the land, but that appraisal, we all acknowledged from the get-go, did not take into account the fishing impacts of running a ferry 30 times a day across the water. It didn't take into account the traffic impacts of what's going on Haxton Way and that sort of thing. I know there's a lot of controversy over whether or not we could put a value on that, but I think $200,000 a year as a lease is a reasonable amount of money, and I'm glad we got there with them. So I'm going to kind of echo what Councilmember Knudsen said, that, you know, this process enabled me, I'm just going to give you my personal perspective, it enabled me to learn a lot about Lummi history and the culture and concerns of the Lummi people. And I've got a respect for those guys now. I think they are honorable, and through this process, unfortunately, they've been, you know, put down by a lot of people. But I think they're real human beings. I know they're real human beings with a vision for a better future for future generations of Lummis, and they have many of the same. Well, they do share the same concerns we all have. They are also striving to improve the physical environment where they're at, and that's why they came back to the table when we in July of 2010 got to a point where we said 200,000 or nothing, and they came and we sat down with them after a lot of going back and forth, and they impressed upon me the desire to make some significant improvements out there that on the roads that we have that we could share with them. And I want the county to be a partner in assisting the Lummi Nation and making those kinds of improvements, and I'm going to be proud when that happens. This is an opportunity to strengthen the relationship between Whatcom County government and the Lummi Nation, and I'm going to do what I can to promote mutually beneficial efforts between the tribe and us. So I'll just close to say that I really want to thank the folks that were really involved in this, and first and foremost, Dan Gibson. I thought I knew Dan Gibson after 10 years on the council, but after the last 2 years, I feel like I really know Dan Gibson now, and I know how he thinks, and I know how he walks, and I know how he talks, and I understand a lot and about how Dan processes. And I can tell you, there's a lot of criticism about, you know, our prosecuting attorney's office and some of the conclusions they've reached regarding our rights and the right-of-way and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why you did not have and still don't have an attorney standing up here getting engaged in a legal argument about issues such as rights of way is because that attorney also is very restricted in what he can say, not knowing what the future holds. And he is unable to go out and have that dialogue with you. But I want to assure you, based on my observation, that no stone was left unturned. And the folks that many of you brought in from a legal perspective, every word was read, every conversation was had, and every legal aspect of this was considered. And some council members may disagree with those legal conclusions, but I will vouch personally that of all my experiences in my 52 years of living on this planet, I think we've got the best legal counsel and have reached the best conclusions based on the law. Pete Crimmin was there through this whole process and participated, and our county executive also deserves appreciation from Lummi Islanders and the Lummi Nation and the taxpayers of Whatcom County for sticking with it, keeping this a very high priority, keeping the county council included in the process. The administration could have, in some ways, kind of blocked us out, but instead it was an inclusive process. The council members were updated in executive session every time there was a new turn of events and have been for the last 2 years. Frank Abart, our Public Works Director, doing a great job from that perspective. Ken and Bill came on at the start of this year when we saw it was going to be beneficial to kind of expand the negotiating team. I'm really glad you guys came in there because I started to feel after a year that maybe there was some sense that, well, the one guy representing the council in this negotiation may not be the right guy. So it was good to have you guys come and take some of that weight off my shoulders, and we gained a good working relationship together, learning collectively how difficult the situation was and what we were up against, and that was almost a bonding experience. And then, of course, the rest of you council members that have been here through all of this discussion. But also on the tribal side, the chairs, Cliff Colty, and prior to him, Henry Kagi, Richard Jefferson, Jeremy, Merle Jefferson. I'm not going to remember all their names, the Solomons, but also Diana Bobb, the tribe attorney. She's really did a good job of communicating with us. So I just want to thank all those folks. I'm not pessimistic about this lease at all. I think we've got a good deal. We've got certainty for you folks for the next 35 years. We can move forward with plans. Our next big task, as far as I'm concerned, is we've got to get a new ferry. I love the quaintness and the folksiness of the Whatcom Chief, but quite frankly, I think most of you can relate that for a modern operation that we need to serve the population that's out there, it's high time that we take a look at replacing that and getting something that's going to meet your needs better. So with that, obviously, I'm supporting this tonight, and I think it's pretty clear we've got a majority to do that, so I'm going to feel good about that. Any final comments? Councilmember Brenner?
Well, I just want to make a correction. You weren't here, but when we went with that 200,000, I only did it because people were so scared. And I said at the time, and I said it publicly, and it's on the record, I felt that was way too high, and I didn't feel we should end up anywhere near there. Just want to say that for the record. The other thing about the right-of-way, I brought that up right away to our attorney and was pretty much poo-pooed without any depth of anything, just because the attorney knows best. I heard a lot of council members say tonight that we'll just do this now and, we can work on something. Well, I'm going to hold you guys to it because I don't think this is a good deal, and I think we do need to continue on, and I'm concerned that because this passes, it won't happen. So I'm definitely going to hold people to it.
Councilmember Knudsen?
Yeah, I don't know if Director Abart can answer this, or maybe one of the Islanders wants to chirp in. When's the last ferry?
Midnight.
Oh, well then, you guys don't need to get out of here. I was worried it might be 9 o'clock and I was gonna call for a vote. But now that I know that, we can all sit here for a long time, can't we? But I'll call for a vote.
Okay. All right, is there any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll? The motion is to approve the intergovernmental framework agreement, uplands lease agreement, and tidelands lease agreement for Lummi Island Ferry usage at Gooseberry Point. Please call the roll.
Barbara Brenner,
No.
Sam Crawford,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Bill Knudsen,
Yes.
Tony Larson,
No.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Carl Weimer.
Yes. And the ordinance passes 5-2. We now have a lease. Thank you very much.
Can we take a break? Can we take a break? I want to, give us a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. So that and if you could take your conversations out into the hallway, we have a lot more business to take care of tonight.